Hey business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on your business purchases. Plus, you can earn 125,000 bonus miles for a limited time through July 15th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. Check out the new card design at www.delta.com/Spotify Business. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends July 15th, 2026.
The rebel who redefined greatness, the Serge Nubret story. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Peak Performance Podcast. I am your host, Brad Young, and I am genuinely glad you are here with me today. Because today we are diving into the life and the methods of a man who did almost everything the wrong way, according to the experts of his time, and yet became one of the most beautiful, most admired, and most legendary physiques the world has ever seen. Today, we are talking about Serge Nubret. Now, if you have never heard that name before, I want you to stay with me because by the end of this episode, you are going to understand why the people who know bodybuilding at its deepest level speak about this man with something close to reverence. And if you already know the name, then you know exactly why I felt compelled to dedicate a full episode to him. Because Serge Nubret is not just a story about muscle. He's a story about defiance, about instinct, about trusting yourself when every authority around you says you are doing it wrong. And that, my friends, is a lesson that reaches far beyond the gym and into everything you are trying to build in your own life. And so here's what I promise you today. We're going to walk through who this man was and where he came from. We are going to break down his training philosophy in detail. The high volume, the high frequency, the slow and controlled repetitions, the pumping methods that made his muscles look like they were carved from stone. We're going to dig into his diet, which was as unconventional as everything else about him, including the part that shocks most people when they first hear it. We are going to explore his rivalries and his mindset and the mind and muscle connection he treated almost like a religion. And then, because this is the Peak Performance Podcast, and we always give you something you can actually use, I'm going to hand you a complete example training program built on his methods that you can take into the gym and try for yourself. So settle in. This one is special. Let me start at the beginning, because to understand the legend, you have to understand the man. Serge Nubret was born on the Caribbean island of Guadeloupe in the years following the Second World War. He grew up far from the glamorous stages and the bright lights where he would eventually make his name. As a young man, he made his way to France. And it was there in Paris that his journey into the world of physical culture truly began. The story that gets told again and again is that he saw a photograph of a great physique, a magazine image of a champion, and something inside him lit up. He looked at that picture and he did not think, that is impossible for me. He thought, that is going to be me. And that single shift in belief, that decision to see greatness as something available to him rather than reserved for others, is where everything started. I want you to sit with that for just a moment because it is the foundation of this entire story. Before the training, before the diet, before the trophies and the rivalries, there was a decision. A young man from a small island looked at the very best in the world and decided he belonged among them. He did not have the resources. He did not have the coaches. He did not have the blueprint. What he had was belief and a willingness to work in a way that nobody could match. If you take nothing else from today, take that. Greatness begins as a decision long before it becomes a result. Now, here's where the story gets interesting and where the theme of this whole episode really comes alive. Serge Nubret entered a world that already had rules. By the time he was rising through the ranks, bodybuilding had developed its accepted wisdom. There were established ways of training. There were respected approaches to eating. There were coaches and champions and authorities who would tell you exactly how a serious competitor was supposed to build a body. And Serge Nubret looked at a great deal of that accepted wisdom and he decided to go his own way. Let me be clear about something, because this is important. He did not rebel just to rebel. He was not being difficult for the sake of being difficult. He experimented. He paid attention. He listened to his own body with an intensity that most people never develop. And when his body told him something that contradicted the experts, he trusted his body. That is a profound lesson for any high performer. The willingness to gather the accepted wisdom, respect it, understand it, and then have the courage to deviate from it when your own experience and your own results point somewhere else. That is not arrogance, that is mastery. So let us talk about how he actually trained, because this is where he became truly revolutionary. In much of the bodybuilding world of his era, and honestly for much of the world even today, the dominant belief was that you build muscle by lifting the heaviest weights you possibly can for a relatively small number of repetitions, and then you rest that muscle for many days before you train it again. The idea was that the muscle needs heavy overload, and then
This is going to be an extremely busy month. I have to watch 104 soccer games, follow the pregame, the postgame, yell useless opinions at the TV. It's a lot. So I knew that when it comes to screening for colon cancer, the choice was clear. The Cologuard Plus test. It can be used at home and can only take 15 minutes, so I can do it during halftime and not miss any action. If you are 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a prescription at Cologuard.com.
extended recovery. Train hard, train heavy, then step back and let it grow. That was the gospel. That was what nearly everyone preached. Serge Nubret did close to the opposite. Instead of chasing the heaviest possible weights, he often used lighter and more moderate loads. Instead of a small number of repetitions, he performed a very high number of repetitions. Instead of a small number of sets, he performed an enormous volume of sets, far more than the conventional wisdom said was necessary or even wise. And instead of resting a muscle group for many days between sessions, he trained with tremendous frequency, sometimes hitting the same areas of his body far more often than the experts said was safe or productive. Think about how radical that was. Like nearly everyone around him was saying, lift heavy and rest a lot. And here was this man lifting more moderate weights for high repetitions with massive volume at high frequency and building one of the most aesthetically perfect physiques anyone had ever seen. He was, in essence, running a completely different experiment than his peers, and the results silenced the doubters. Now, let me break down the specific principles that made his approach work, because there is genuine wisdom here that you can apply, and I do not want you to think this was just random hard work. It was intelligent, it was deliberate, it was refined over years of paying attention. And the first principle was the slow and controlled repetition. This is absolutely central to understanding Serge Nubret. He did not throw the weights around. He did not use momentum to swing the load up and let gravity drop it back down. He moved with control. He lowered the weight slowly and deliberately, feeling the muscle stretch and resist every inch of the way. He lifted with intention. The weight was never the point. The sensation in the muscle was the point. He understood something that took the wider fitness world decades to fully appreciate. The muscle does not know how much weight is on the bar. The muscle only knows tension and time under that tension. And by moving slowly and controlling every repetition, he maximized the tension his muscles experienced on every single rep. The second principle was the sheer volume. Where another competitor might perform a handful of sets for a body part, Serge Nubret might perform a great many more. He would work a muscle from multiple angles, with multiple movements for set after set after set. This enormous volume flooded the muscle with work, and it created the pump, which brings me to the third principle. The third principle was the pump, and Serge Nubret treated the pump as one of the most important sensations in all of training. Now, for anyone who has never experienced it, let me explain what the pump actually is in simple terms. When you train a muscle with high repetitions and high volume, blood rushes into that muscle to fuel the effort and clear away the byproducts of the work. The muscle swells, it becomes fuller, harder, and larger in that moment. It feels tight and powerful and alive. Many people treat that sensation as a pleasant side effect. Serge Nubret treated it as a primary goal. He believed that chasing and maintaining that pump, that flooding of the muscle, was a key driver of the growth and the extraordinary quality of his physique. He wanted his muscles engorged with blood, working hard, staying full for extended periods. The fourth principle, and this ties everything together, was the mind and muscle connection. And I want to spend real time here, because this is the heart of his genius, and it is something every single one of you listening can apply, whether you ever touch a barbell or not. Serge Nubret did not just move weights. He focused his entire mind on the muscle he was working. When he trained his chest, his whole consciousness was in his chest. He felt every fiber contracting. He visualized the muscle working, growing, responding. He was not distracted. He was not going through the motions. He was completely, totally present in the muscle. He treated each repetition almost like a meditation, a moment of absolute focus where his mind and his body became one thing working toward one purpose. And now think about what that really is. That is a state of deep focus presence. That is the elimination of distraction and the channeling of complete attention onto a single task. In the world of peak performance, we talk endlessly about focus. We talk about deep work. We talk about being fully present. We talk about the flow state where your mind and your action merge and your performance reaches heights that scattered attention could never achieve. Serge Nubret was practicing exactly that decades ago in a gymnasium in Paris with a barbell in his hands. He understood that where your mind goes, your energy follows. And that principle applies to your training, your work, your finances, your relationships, and every ambitious goal you are chasing right now. The connection between focused attention and results is not some vague, feel good idea. When you bring your complete attention to a task, you engage with it more fully. You notice more, you adjust more precisely, and you get more out of every unit of effort. Serge Nubret got more out of a moderate weight moved slowly with total focus than many of his rivals got out of a heavy weight thrown around with a wandering mind. That is leverage. That is efficiency of effort. That is a lesson worth carrying into everything you do. Now let us talk about his diet because it was every bit as unconventional as his training, and this is the part that tends to surprise people the most. In an era where a great deal of complicated nutritional theory was starting to take hold, Serge Nubret ate in a way that was almost startling in its simplicity and its instinct. He consumed enormous amounts of protein. His diet was built around meat, and he ate quantities that would astonish most people. He believed deeply in protein as the raw material of muscle, and he made sure his body was flooded with it. Here's the detail that catches almost everyone off guard when they first hear it. A significant portion of the meat he ate was horse meat. Now, in many parts of the world, that sounds shocking, but in France and in various parts of Europe, horse meat was and remains a normal food, available and eaten without a second thought. Serge Nubret favored it because it was very lean, very high in protein, and readily available to him. He was not trying to be strange. He was making a practical, instinctive choice based on what gave his body what it needed. He wanted lean, clean protein in large amounts, and this was a source that delivered exactly that. Beyond the meat, his diet leaned heavily toward whole, simple foods. He largely avoided the heavily processed products that were beginning to fill the modern food supply. He ate in a way that was clean by the standards of his time, focusing on real food that his body could actually use. And here's what I find most fascinating about his approach to eating. He ate instinctively. He did not weigh every gram on a scale and calculate every number to the decimal point the way the modern world often insists you must. He developed a deep awareness of his own body and he fed it based on what it told him it needed. He listened. He paid attention to how foods made him feel, how they affected his training, how they affected his physique, and he adjusted based on that lived experience. Now, I want to be balanced and honest with you here because that is what we do on this show. I'm not standing here telling you to go out and eat enormous quantities of horse meat, and I'm not telling you to abandon all structure and measurement in your nutrition. For many people, tracking and structure are incredibly valuable tools, especially when you are starting out and you have not yet developed that deep body awareness. The real lesson from Serge Nubret is not the specific food. The real lesson is the principle underneath it. Prioritize real, whole, high-quality food. Get abundant protein to support your goals. Minimize the heavily processed products that do your body no favors. And over time, work to develop a genuine awareness of how food affects your energy, your focus, your recovery, and your performance so that you are not blindly following a plan, but actually understanding your own body. And that combination of solid principles and personal awareness is where the magic lives. Let me now bring in the rivalries and the stage because you cannot tell the story of this legend without them. Serge Nubret competed in an era stacked with enormous talent. This was a golden age of the sport, a time when the stages were filled with some of the most famous physiques in all of history. He stood shoulder to shoulder with the giants of his day. He competed against the very best in the world, the men whose names became synonymous with the sport itself. And while he did not always walk away with the top title, in every contest, he earned something arguably more lasting. He earned the deep and enduring respect of the people who truly understood the art of building a body. Because here's the thing about Serge Nubret, many people believed and still believe to this day that in terms of pure aesthetics, pure balance, pure beauty of the physique, he was among the greatest who ever lived. Some argue that on certain nights, against certain legends, he should have won and did not. His physique had a quality that transcended mere size. It had proportion, it had symmetry. It had a flow and an elegance that made it look almost sculpted by an artist rather than built in a gym. He was not just big, he was beautiful in the way that a masterpiece is beautiful, and that quality came directly from his unconventional methods. The high volume, the slow controlled work, the relentless pursuit of the pump, the total mental focus, all of it combined to create a physique that people still study and admire generations later. And this brings us to why he is truly a legend, which is the deeper point I want you to hold on to. Serge Nubret is a legend not simply because of the trophies he won or did not win. He is a legend because he proved that there is more than one path to greatness. He is a legend because he had the courage to reject the accepted wisdom and trust his own experience. And he was validated by results that the whole world could see. He is a legend because he demonstrated that mastery is not about blindly following the crowd. It is about deeply understanding your craft, listening to yourself, experimenting with courage, and then committing fully to the path your own truth reveals. That is the kind of legacy that reaches far beyond bodybuilding. Think about your own field, your own ambitions, your own definition of peak performance. Everywhere you look, there is accepted wisdom. There is the way things are supposed to be done. There is the crowd moving in the same direction, following the same advice, chasing the same conventional path. And there is nothing wrong with learning from that wisdom. You should. But the people who become legends in any field are almost always the ones who master the fundamentals so completely that they earn the right to deviate. They are the ones who listen to their own experience, who trust their own instincts, who have the courage to run their own experiment when everyone else says it will not work. Serge Nubret is a permanent, powerful reminder that greatness often lives on the road less traveled, and that the willingness to go against the grain when guided by genuine understanding and relentless work can produce something the world will admire for generations. Now, because I promised you, and because this show is about giving you things you can actually use, let me hand you a complete example training program inspired by the methods of Serge Nubret. I want you to understand something before we begin. This is a demanding approach. It involves high volume and high frequency, and it is not necessarily where a complete beginner should start. If you are new to training, build a foundation first. Learn the movements and develop your base of strength and control. But if you have some experience under your belt and you want to experience what this style feels like, this will give you a genuine taste of the Nubret philosophy. Here are the guiding rules for the entire program. First, you will use moderate weights, loads that allow you to perform high repetitions with excellent form. Leave your ego at the door, because this is not about the number on the bar. Second, every single repetition will be slow and controlled. Take about 2 to 3 seconds to lower the weight and about 1 to 2 seconds to lift it, and never use momentum. Third, you will keep your rest periods relatively short, generally somewhere around 45 seconds to 60 seconds between sets, because you are chasing and maintaining that pump. Fourth, and most importantly, you will focus your complete mind on the muscle you are working during every single repetition. Feel it stretch, feel it contract. Be fully present. This mental focus is not optional. It is the entire point. Let me give you a structure across the week. This program trains with high frequency, hitting the major areas of the body multiple times in the spirit of how he trained. For day one, we focus on the chest and the back together. Begin with the barbell bench press for 5 sets of 15 to 20 repetitions, moving slowly and squeezing the chest at the top of every rep. Follow that with the wide grip pull up or a pull down movement for 5 sets of 15 repetitions, feeling your back muscles pull the weight rather than your arms. Then move to the incline dumbbell press for 4 sets of 15 repetitions to target the upper chest. Follow with a seated row for 4 sets of 15 repetitions, focusing intensely on squeezing your shoulder blades together. Finish with dumbbell flies for 4 sets of 20 repetitions to fully flood the chest with blood, and a straight arm pull down for 4 sets of 20 repetitions to finish the back. Keep your rest short and your focus complete throughout. For day 2, we focus on the legs. Begin with the barbell squat for 6 sets of 15 to 20 repetitions, controlling the descent and driving up with power while keeping the tension on your thighs. Follow with the leg press for 5 sets of 20 repetitions, never locking out and never resting at the top. Move to the leg extension for 5 sets of 20 repetitions, squeezing hard at the top of every single rep. Then perform the lying leg curl for 5 sets of 15 to 20 repetitions for the back of your legs. Finish with standing calf raises for 6 sets of 20 repetitions, pausing and squeezing at the top of each one. Your legs should feel completely engorged and worked by the end. For day 3, we focus on the shoulders and the arms. Begin with the seated dumbbell shoulder press for 5 sets of 15 repetitions. Follow with the lateral raise for 5 sets of 20 repetitions, lifting slowly and feeling the sides of your shoulders do the work. Move to the barbell curl for 5 sets of 15 repetitions for the front of your arms, controlling every inch. Then perform the lying triceps extension for 5 sets of 15 repetitions for the back of your arms. Finish with alternating dumbbell curls for 4 sets of 15 repetitions and the triceps push down for 4 sets of 20 repetitions, chasing that final pump in the arms. For day 4, you rest and recover, allowing your body to rebuild. Then in the spirit of his high-frequency approach, you repeat the cycle. Day 5 returns to the chest and back. Day 6 returns to the legs. Day 7 returns to the shoulders and arms before taking another rest day. In this way, you are training each area of your body roughly twice per week with very high volume, which captures the frequency principle that made his approach so distinct. Now, let me give you some honest guidance around this program because I care about your long-term results and your well-being, not just a quick thrill. This is a lot of volume, and your recovery becomes absolutely critical. You must prioritize your sleep, aiming for a full and restful night every single night, because that is when your body actually rebuilds and grows. You must fuel yourself with abundant, high-quality protein and real whole foods to support the enormous work you are asking your body to do, exactly in the spirit of his nutritional principles. You must stay deeply hydrated, and you must listen to your body with the same attentiveness that Serge Nubret listened to his. If something feels wrong, if you are run down, if a joint is complaining, back off and recover. The goal is intelligent hard work, not reckless punishment. Run this style for a block of several weeks. Pay close attention to how your body responds, and then adjust based on your own experience, which is the most Nubret thing you could possibly do. Let me pull this all together now, because we have covered a great deal today, and I want you to walk away with total clarity. Serge Nubret was a man who looked at the accepted rules of his world and had the courage to forge his own path. He trained with high volume and high frequency when the experts preached the opposite. He moved slowly and with total control when others heaved heavy weights around. He chased the pump and treated it as sacred. He fed his body instinctively with abundant, clean, simple food. And above everything else, he brought a total, focused, almost meditative presence to every repetition, uniting his mind and his body into a single force. The result was a physique so beautiful that the world still studies it, and a legacy so powerful that we are talking about him right now, long after his time on the stage. But here's what I really want you to carry with you today, because it reaches far beyond any gymnasium. The story of Serge Nubret is a story about the power of belief, the courage of independent thinking, and the incredible results that come from bringing your complete focus to the work in front of you. He believed in his own greatness before anyone else did. He trusted his own experience over the crowd, and he mastered the art of total presence, channeling every ounce of his attention into the task at hand. Those 3 things: unshakable belief, the courage to go against the grain, and the discipline of complete focus are available to you right now in whatever arena you're competing in your career, in your finances, in your training, in your personal growth. You do not have to accept that the conventional path is the only path. You do not have to scatter your attention across 1,000 distractions. You can decide to believe in your own potential. You can have the courage to trust your own well-earned experience, and you can bring your full and undivided focus to your most important work. When you do that, you are operating on the same principles that made a young man from a small island into an enduring legend. And so here is your one action step for this week. Just one, because I always believe in focus over overwhelm. This week, I want you to choose one important task, whether it is a training session, critical piece of work, or a meaningful conversation, and I want you to do it with the complete, undistracted, total presence that Serge Nubret brought to every repetition. Put away every distraction, silence the noise, bring your entire mind to that single task. Feel yourself fully engaged in it, and notice the difference in the quality of what you produce. That one experience of true focused presence will show you a glimpse of what becomes possible when your mind and your effort become one. Because that is the truth I want to leave you with today. Greatness is rarely found by following the crowd. It is found by those who believe deeply, who think for themselves, and who commit their whole being to the work in front of them. Serge Nubret proved it with his body. Now go prove it with your life. This has been the Peak Performance Podcast. I am Brad Young. Thank you for spending this time with me and for having the curiosity and the drive to learn from a true original. Now go out there. Believe in your potential, trust your own path, bring your complete focus to what matters most, and build something the world will remember. I will see you next time.